Bye-bye Hindi team. Now it is the time for the English session. Before beginning the session, we'll have a silent prayer. Good evening and welcome everyone. Today is our 1897th day of continuous webinar. Thank you all the participants for joining with us. Today's our speaker is Dr. NAJEEB Ahammed. I think there is no need of any introduction. He has taken many classes in English and Malayalam. So this is the continuation. And he has 15 years of experience. He had done MBA Functional Medicine degree and BHMS, and now he's practicing in UAE. And I'm very happy to invite you, Dr. NAJEEB. You're welcome, and you can start now, please. Doctor, unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Again, I sent. Unmute, please.
Yes, now it is unmuted. And let me open my sharing option. Yes, it is there. Share screen options, multiple person, one. You make me the co-host.
Yeah, you are co-host. You are co-host.
Yes. Then share. Yes, where is share? I don't know why this share is not showing here. Share.
No, that started.
You can see my screen?
No.
So that means I am searching for this.
Share again.
3 button is there in that Zoom. Okay. Icon, caption, docs, notes.
You can see the share button, right?
No, I can't see it was there, but I don't know where it is gone now. Yes, now I can.
Sometimes it is hiding.
Yes. Now it is back to the screen now. Yes. Share. Now you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Done. Let me put this on the top. Yes. Well, impact of noise pollution on health and well-being. How audible am I? Is it okay? My voice is audible now?
Yeah.
Last time we had some problem with the audio, right?
Now it's so.
Wonderful. So this is part 1 of this series of lecture. At exactly 8:15 a.m., August 6th, 1945, Colonel Paul W. Tibbs, a U.S. Air Force captain, pressed a button and released a deadly payload at the Chicago. The name of the bomb was Little Boy over Hiroshima skyscape. Less than 43 seconds, a flash brighter than sunlight ignited the sky, followed by blast so violent, a sound wave so violent, it shattered everything in its path. The sound pressure exceeded 200 decibels, which is enough to rupture eardrums of human, collapse the lungs, shatter buildings miles away. And 3 days again, after 3 days, another captain of US Air Force pressed another, a button of by releasing a deadly bomb, which is called Fat Man, and he was flying on the skies of Nagasaki. So over the short span of 3 days, 2 devastating bombs, 2 deadly explosions in 3 days, after this humongous sound waves, huge explosion, heat waves, 2 cities fell silent for decades. And after that sonic devastation, we learned something. Sound can uproot mountains, collapse buildings, and sound can kill. So 2 explosions, 3 days. So let us see some other examples of how people are using, how governments are using sound as a weapon. There is something called long-range acoustic devices. So, which has been used by many governments, including US government, in dismantling protest and handling protesters in US-Mexico borders. There are multiple examples of that reported across the last couple of decades. US Embassy Havana incidents is another one where the sonic attacks caused hearing loss in and other health symptoms, of course, among diplomats. Then another experimental case reported uh, in conflict of security settings, like infrasound, ultrasound based devices intended to incapacitate targets, both man and animals, through though there are ethical issues related to those kind of things. Another kind of devices is sonic bullets or non-lethal acoustic devices. Then again, as I said, infrasonic, which is sound waves which below the audibility sound, and ultrasonic, which is higher frequency sounds above our audibility. These are the typical, sound acoustic weapons used in war and non-war time. So sound can cause devastating. The example is like, what I'm showing all these examples is sound can cause damages. It can deprivate your sensory system. It can cause sleep deprivation. It can cause a forced stress positioning and stress related anomalies. So there are sound torture technique which is widely used in many cases, like including Guantanamo. Okay, and there people the authorities use these sound torture techniques as a no touch interrogation methods. So these are the examples of sound used as a torture method or as a weapon. So beyond war and wartime hazards, and we have seen that a lot of examples in war and wartime, how sound can impact us in our everyday life. Okay, in our, this is much more devastating than Hiroshima, because Hiroshima, it was a city and it was a, of course, it was so magnificent. It was one of the cruelest thing happened by the hands of human against mankind. But when we compare the impact of everyday sound noise pollution, Hiroshima and Nagasaki is still much lesser than this. So impact of everyday sound noise pollution on health and well-being, that is something we are beyond war and beyond tortured devices. That is what we are going to examine today in our discussion. So major studies, let us look into a couple of major studies that show noise pollution hazards and its impacts. There is a study during the 2019 by PMC. Noise pollution, this is high in health effect review, published in health effect review. Noise pollution is strongly linked to hearing loss, especially in occupational noise-induced hearing loss. Noise-induced hearing loss. So it is a documented study. Also associated with cardiac vascular diseases like hypertension, myocardial infarction, and all. And again, in the same study, it has been shown that sleep disturbances, cognitive deficits, mental issues, anxiety, depression, and developmental risk in fetuses. So another study by European, the previous one was an US study. European Environmental Agency has conducted another study during 2020. So traffic noise, one of the study was on traffic noises impact, which has caused 12,000 premature deaths and more than 48,000 new ischemic heart diseases. They have used various mappings for that to understand how it is impacting the premature death and all. Around 22 million Europeans are suffering chronic annoyance, and 66.5 million have chronic sleep disturbance linked to noises. So aircraft noises causes cognitive impairment in 12,500 school children. Again, this is a European study. US Environmental Protection Agency have reported, this is one of the earliest studies, half of the US population is living in noise polluted areas, which is affecting their health. and second leading environmental risk factor. We know various kinds of environmental risk factors, environmental pollutions. Air pollution is one of the most commonest one, most widely, impacting one. And second one is this noise pollution, which is even greater than water pollution. But water pollution we can see, air pollution we can sense. This perhaps is one of the most what do you call that, forgotten or most forsaken kind of pollution is called noise pollution. Well, so long-term noise exposures can cause cognitive decline and cardiovascular effect, as per the US Environmental Protection Agency. So you can see repeatedly in many cases of many examples of studies, many instances of studies, cognitive decline, cardiovascular issues, sleep deprivation is repeatedly reported in many of these studies. Another large epidemiological study among health and nurse health population associated with noise, especially at night, again causing heart risk and heart attacks, hemorrhagic strokes, strong effect in women. Another coveted study which is still very recent, just last year, published by Harvard, is again cementing the previous evidences of cardiovascular mortality and industrial among industrial traffic and community noises exposure and other nocturnal related more noise exposure. So repeatedly we will see that cardiovascular has a risk, again cognitive risk, sleep deprivation, and with many other metabolic disorders. So these are the few examples. Noise intermittency is and cardiovascular risk is another study which is conducted by US agencies. Studies show that varying noise intensity, example sudden train noises, may cause cardiovascular health than steady noises, the intermittent noise and steady noises. Sudden noises is something which is more devastating than steady noises. So that is intermittent noises. So that is something we need to look into while we address this noise pollution issues. Loud intermittent sound exacerbate heart risk. So we need to understand the difference between intermittent noises and steady noises. Steady progressive noises can be less injurious than sudden acute vibrations, variations in the noise pitch. So let us try to understand a few things about noise pollution. What it is, what is the definition, how WHO define it, and defined various noise threshold, safe versus harmful decibels, and noise is measured in decibels. Well, so noise pollution refers to unwanted, let us come to the definition of it. Unwanted or harmful sounds that disrupts the normal acoustic environment and negatively impact health and well-being. We saw two words here, unwanted and harmful. Unwanted, when we say unwanted, it is interrupting, intriguing, it is irritating. Unwanted means it can be culturally unwanted, it can be personally unwanted, it can be unwanted for one person, which is dear for another person. Example, you are a night life person visiting nightclubs, exposed to loud jazz music and all. For somebody, when you are enjoying this nightlife acoustic turbulence, even more than 110 decibel, few blocks away, another person will be trying to read something, and this noise will be highly annoying and unwanted for him. So it is subjective, it is personal, it can be religious, it can be this person to person, religion to religion, various response to the noise can be different. So again, another word we use, we need to understand about while trying to understand noise pollution is harmful. Unwanted can be subjective, but harmful can be same for everybody. Harmful, it can cause, if at all it is, there is of course vulnerable population is there, but harmful can be harmful for anybody if you are into that vulnerable population. So if it is loud, if it is more than 85 decibel, and if it is long, so it can be harmful even if it is your favorite situation. You are a regular night club visitor, and you are exposed to very high noises. You love nightclub jazzes and all those metallic musics, but it can be even harmful even if you love that. So it can be harmful, it can be unwanted, and it disrupts the normal acoustic environment, normal sound environment. Again, another part of the definition is that it can negatively impact your health. So noise pollution, we need to see whether it is negatively impacting, whether it is unwanted, irritating you, whether it is harmful, and it is disrupting your noise peaceful conditions. So especially prevalent, most of this condition, noise pollution is, you can see, like many other pollution, much more prevalent in urban areas than otherwise. And due to heavy traffics, dense population, industrial activities, and domestic and occupational sources. So urban areas much more prone to have noise pollution than our normal village areas. Let us try to understand the normal sources of noise pollution. Of course, urban noises are there, like traffic, like car, buses, and hustles of trains and all. Sirens, ambulances, construction things, public events, and airport and industrial zone can be, you can be exposed to special uh, noise pollutions. So domestic noise is another thing in which you can see, like machines which you use in domestic places like washing machines, air conditions, televisions, and loud music of especially your teenager is fond of those loud musics. Family arguments, which is very common among our households. So uh, and again, pets can cause, play a role in their own role in creating noises, of course, and occupational noises like workshop, power tools, drilling machines, headphones during their work, for example. Another one is institutions, which I want to, particularly address here. Institutions like educational institutes, you will see a lot of noises happening in the loudspeaker when the schools are using loudspeaker, which is cause a lot of annoyance in the neighborhood. Entertainment, again, religious institutions, religious places like mosques, mandirs, and the churches, whoever it is, they can uh, throw a lot of noises across the community. So what is the key insight we need to learn from this? Sleep is highly vulnerable to noises, and especially during night should be much more calmer than daytime, and continuous above recommendation exposure can increase a lot of things like hearing loss, heart diseases, sleep disturbances, and sleep disturbance in turn can cause a lot of other emotional and metabolic diseases. So let us try to understand a few examples to understand the magnitude of noise, how much decibel it is. Our hearing threshold, we need to have at least 1 decibel or half decibel to hear something. Okay, and age to age, this decibel audibility can be varied. Youngsters can be having a better audibility than an older adult. Okay, again, normal breathing, our breathe sound can be 10 decibel. Whisper can be 30 decibel. Office conditions, office environment will be having 40 decibel. Normal conversation can be 60 decibel. In some cases, it can go 70 or 80. And when you are angry, it can go beyond that. Busy street, vacuum cleaner examples, for kind of things, can cause even up to 80 decibels. A jackhammer, a driller, a motorcycle can take the decibel to 100 and beyond. Nightclub and rock concert, it will be around 110 to 120. And a jet engine, especially when you are nearby, it can go even beyond 130. So this is the scale of various common examples of noise sources and its decibel. Types of sources, there are environmental, there are domestic and recreational, and there can be psychological noises. which can cause mental overload and constant alert. Examples of environmental noises are traffic. Of course, environmental is something which is not domestic. Traffic, industry, and construction. Construction can take this noise beyond 120. Normal traffic will be around 90, and industry in many cases can take the audibility loudness to 110. Prolonged exposure to above 70 decibel increases various risks, including hearing loss, cardio 70 decibel, of course. But in some account, we can say that we can go to up to a level of 80 well for some period. But even if it is 70, longer period, which can cause a lot of strain, like cardiovascular, and especially when the population is so dense. Second source is domestic and recreational noises. We use a lot of gadgets like vacuum cleaner, blenders, hair dryers. We use loud music, video games, headphones, of course, which is one of the very common thing among us. And the headphones, even while using headphones, we go a lot of high noises. So this can cause, headphones can even create 105 decibel of noises. So youngsters, teenagers are, without knowing the hazard, without knowing the danger, they are exposed, and they are one of the very vulnerable people. And especially teenagers are particularly, vulnerable because they have this pruning which is happening during this, cerebral pruning, neurological pruning happening during the adolescence, are highly vulnerable to very high noises. Another one is that continual noises, as I said, including 85 decibel, can lead to temporary or permanent hearing loss, especially if headphones or speakers are used for extended periods. And unfortunately, headphones are used for many hours by teenagers and even others. So we need to address this, and we need to spread special awareness on this topic. Psychological triggers, like we tend to, especially while using phones, exposed to a lot of notification, emails, reminders, and ping sounds created by mental. This is called the mental noises. So we often use multitasking, doing a lot of things using sound as a. We'll be listening to music. We'll be using the screen, and we will doing conversation while we listen to music. So these are all cause a lot of cognitive overload, mental overload, mental stress and all. So these are the various sources, and the sources, WHO has given us some boundaries. For highway, it is should be less than 70 decibel. And if it is in your workplace, it should be 85 decibel. And construction, 85 decibel and low. And vacuum cleaner should be 85 and below 85. Headphone should be lesser than 70 decibels. And rock concert should be less than 70, which is not going to happen in any of those nightclubs. Usually it is 100 plus. Mobile alerts usually, but constantly, should be below 50 decibels, and office, home environment should be below 50. And NICU, WHO has given very specific mandate for NICU. NICU, it should be below 45. How our body perceives sound? We need to understand something about the normal mechanism of hearing. And what is our auditory threshold in various occasions, and safe exposure, duration, how long we can have these noises, and what is this acoustic load is all about, and physiological impact of all this acoustic load. Voice is created by a source, of course, and waves, it create a pressure waves in the air, which our pin or our external auditory part is collected as a funnel, and drive that through the middle ear, hit that to the tympanum, the membrane, which will pass through a very funny small bones called malleus, incus, and stapes, then it will enter to the cochlear apparatus. Finally, it will reach to our, you know, auditory nerves, which will enter the auditory nerves. From the cochlea, vibration creates waves again. It was previously waves. Then it enters the tympanum and the bones as physical, signals. Then it enters, hit the uh, sensory hair cells in the organ of Corte. Again, it is converted to waves for a second time in the basilar membrane. From there, it is converted to mechanical energy to electrical energy. From the mechanical to electrical, then it passes through the auditory nerve to the midbrain, to the in our brainstem, and to the primary auditory cortex in the temporal lobe. And the brain interpret this noise as whatever it is. It can be Sunidhi Chauhan's music or Michael Jackson, or your wife is shouting at you. So it can be anything. But this is the way noise, it is at 2 mark or 5 marks for our medical college examinations. So processing hearing, multiple, while processing, there are multiple protection mechanisms now here. External auditory middle ear, external ear and middle ear manually amplify the sounds to make the sound sharper and stronger. But if it is beyond, it is more, and sound which is important for speech understanding and all, 2000 to 5000 hertz is something the external and middle ear amplifies. So acoustic reflexes in the middle ear muscle attenuates the sound if it is above this 5000. So there is a preventive mechanism. There is a control mechanism in the middle ear. In the external ear, it amplifies. Middle ear still support the amplification, but some part of the middle ear, especially acoustic reflex in the middle ear muscles, sometimes graduate this sound to lower it if it is too loud. So auditory threshold and safe exposure, it is around 20 to 20,000 hertz. It is hertz in pitch. It's not in loudness. Loudness is measured in decibels. So most of our usual conversation will happen between 100 and 1,000 and 3,000 hertz. So normal hearing range will be 20 to 20,000 hertz. In this, actually 20 hertz can be, if you are very sharp, if you are very acute, you can have this 20 hertz. You can hear that. But most of us, especially when you are in middle age or in a later adulthood, our audibility threshold will be narrowing. We cannot hear even 50, 60, 80 hertz and all, or even 100 hertz, due to various injuries which is happening in the overexposure and all. Safe exposure duration is 85 decibel for longer period. For example, 85 decibel in busy street for 8 hours is something which is safe. If it is more than that, it is not safe. 100 decibel in concert or drilling and all for 15 minutes only. If you are in a jazz concert, in a rock concert, if it is above 15 minutes, it can cause some injuries. So even if it is more than 150 decibel, it can immediately damage your hearing mechanism. So we need to be very much careful about that. And acoustic, we need to understand something called acoustic load. Why we need to understand that? Because these are the few elements of noise which is in particular affect the impact of noise. One is volume, another one is frequency, third one is nature, and fourth one the duration or time. If the volume in decibels is too much, even the short period duration can be dangerous. If it is slower, and if the frequency is very high, again, if even the decibel is small, it can cause problem. And again, nature of sound, if it is intermittent, if it is sudden, even an 80 or 90 decibel can be harmful, especially in vulnerable population. So these are the major, elements of noises which can affect your, impact, which can cause impact in your health: volume, frequency, nature, and the duration. So excessive acoustic load, and collectively it is called acoustic load. Excessive acoustic load may fatigue and damage hair cells in the organ of Corti, in the cochlea, after cochlea, or in the cochlear cells. Okay, overwhelm protective reflexes in the middle ear and can cause acoustic trauma if you are exposed to very loud noise. It can cause physiological stress responses, and it can in especially among the vulnerable population, children, elders, and lower acoustic tolerance can increase even in moderate, in special population. Even lower acoustic tolerance will be there, or it can cause increased risk even in moderate decibel levels. So especially elderly people and newborns and infants. Again, biological and psychological effect. There are a few things we need to understand here. Hearing effect is one of the things. Second one is cardiovascular effect. Third one is sleep disruption and deprivation. Neuropsychological effect, metabolic effect. Hearing effect or noise induced hearing loss. If you want to know, this is something you may see that we didn't see much of the people who lost their hearing due to sound hazards. This can be something, some kind of thought that may come in your mind. If you want to see the impact, if you really want to understand the impact, you have to go to a hearing trainer's clinic or audio, a hearing speech clinic in the nearby town. You will see a lot of people who are having challenges in hearing due to continuous exposure to all these loud noises. So they may not be coming to an homeopathy clinic. So that is why we are not much aware of these kind of things. Hearing loss, noise-induced hearing losses, for example, is one of the things due to damaging of cochlear apparatus and the hair cells, is an irreversible phenomena. It begins loss of sensitivity to higher frequencies. Higher the frequency, you may not feel like, whether you are hearing to that. And that is another. And second one is tinnitus. Tinnitus, that noisy ringing and buzzing sounds in the ear, often as a result from the cochlear damage or auditory nerve dysfunction. It can be either due to cochlear damage or auditory nerve dysfunction. We will have persistent ringing and buzzing noises and all. It's an annoying thing. It can affect your quality of life in deeply and dearly. It can severely affect quality of life, causing sleep problems and emotional distress. Another one is acoustic trauma. Acoustic trauma is a sudden effect of a loud noise. Loud noises like explosions, gunshots, kind of thing. So result will be kind of acute, rapid hearing loss, dizziness, and sudden onset of tinnitus. Because many tinnitus, if you go, you may see tinnitus quite often in your clinics. If you explore the case of tinnitus, you will find some acute, sudden history of loud exposure of noises. So we need to explore that. We need to especially ask when you are in a clinic, whenever you see a tinnitus case. Another one is cardiovascular effect. When we discuss about those studies across the globe, across the continents, we have seen a lot of studies emphasizing the impact of noises in cardiovascular health. And in especially it elevates the blood pressure by activating sympathetic nervous system, causing release of stress hormones, and especially elevated nocturnal noises, night noises, can particularly worsen the blood pressure control. Ischemic heart disease is another thing, and which can cause heart attack and coronary diseases due to prolonged inflammation, vascular dysfunction, and heightened, due to stress and all, heightened sympathetic tone and all. So sympathetic tone can cause stress. Stress can cause inflammation. Inflammation can cause vascular dysfunction. So increased sympathetic tone directly can cause persistent stressors, adrenergic activities. Heart rate variability is affected. Heart rate variability is an important indicator of your heart's health. So it can be affected. Vascular resistance and cardiovascular health in general over the time, over the period. So that is the cardiovascular thing. Another very important thing which can be affected is your sleep. It can change in the rhythm of circadian rhythm. It can affect body's clock regulation. It can affect the melatonin kind of hormones, production, and it can disrupt sleep-wake cycle. Especially nighttime noise is particularly dangerous, and your sleep recovery will be affected. There can be a lot of impact on REM sleep in particular due to various interruption in your sleep. When you have a lot of interruption, that will impact your REM sleep, which is very important in cognitive restoration, physical restoration, and immune function. So poor sleep recovery, you will be feeling unrefreshed. So we need to be particularly cautious when you create your sleep sanctuary, when you design your bedroom, when for example, you can have a noisy air conditioner, you can have a noisy fan which is rattling and rumbling. So we need to understand all those things. So sympathetic overactivity is another thing which can be triggered by loud noises. Again, can cause a lot of impact on your sleep. It can cause sleep disruption, sleep adversely affect fabric of your sleep. Then neuropsychological effect of impact of sleep. Of course, anxiety and irritability. When you are anxious and irritable, you don't like noises. When you are having a lot of problems and headaches, you don't like noises, because noises can trigger, exacerbate, and perpetuate your anxiety and irritability. It can be an exciting cause, it can be a maintaining cause, and it can be both. Again, depression. Depression is another thing which can be a secondary effect of long-term noise exposure. And depressive symptoms likely mediated by disruption in sleep, social strain, and neuroendocrinal dysfunction. Okay, these are all, kind of connected in various ways. One can breed the other one, and again it can work as a vicious cycle. Cognitive fatigue is another thing which can happen due to persistent exposure to loud noises. It can impair your memory. It can affect your concentrations. Okay, and fatigue and the noise can distract and fatigue cognitive resources, and it can reduce your attention span, working memory. If you lose your attention span, it can directly affect your memory, and in turn it can affect your execution functions, impairing work and learning things and performance issues in the companies. Those are the common things we can have as a neuropsychological effect of excessive noise exposure. Again, all these things can cause metabolic effect. Psychological, again, physical effect, loud noises, all these cumulatively cause metabolic damages and increased risk in hypertension, of course, and diabetes. Noise can trigger elevated cortisol, which is an inflammatory marker. That can promote insulin resistance, impaired glucose metabolism. So this is very simple. Metabolic risk starts from the aggression, stresses, and sympathetic activation, elevation of cortisols and other stress hormones, inflammation, insulin resistance, glucose metabolism can be impaired then. Metabolic dysregulation is another important thing which can happen when you are exposed to sustained sympathetic activation, when you are exposed to loud noises. That can affect lipid profile, blood sugar, weight irregularities, then contributing to metabolic syndrome. So, which is one of the most commonest, most widely, prevalent condition among the modern civilization, metabolic syndrome. So, diabetes, hypertension, lipid dysregulation, all these can be a direct impact of your continuous exposure to loud noises. So, we need to address something which is particularly important: impact on vulnerable population. Children are one of the most important people who are especially exposed to a lot of noises. Traffic, especially school going children, are exposed to a lot of noises, like traffic noises, loud noise in their schools, and other religious noises, and so many other things. Pregnant women, fetuses, elderly, and urban shift workers. So let us examine one by one. Children and infants have developmental concerns. Children and infants are particularly have a very underdeveloped or developing auditory nervous system, and they are yet to develop their system. That is very sensitive, very tiny, very delicate. So any strong noises can, and we need to consider them as a very sensitive, very vulnerable as a community when we play with noises. And WHO guidelines says it can impair language acquisition, cognitive development, reduce attention span, hyperactivity. You will see a lot of hyperactivity children across the community these days, and you need to understand why they are behaving so hyperactive. This is one of the contributing factor. The loud noise is one of the contributing factors which can cause hyperactivity among children. It can interfere their sleep quality, because children and infants needs a lot of sleep. Unlike us, they need a longer span of sleep to enhance their cognitive function, enhance their growth, scales and all. So if they are exposed to a lot of noises, that can affect a lot of ways. So elevate stress hormone levels, okay, and sleep quality can be affected, growth can be affected, brain maturation can be adversely affected. So elevated stress hormone levels again lead to behavioral issues. Nowadays, kids will be showing a lot of behavioral issues other than hyperactivity. So we need to understand whether they are, if you are seeing the toddler, the young champions living around us are exposed to a lot of noises, and still beyond that they are using a lot of headphones and all. We need to understand that they are highly exposed to loud noises other than whatever they are exposed from the environment. And when noise is already there for these kids, and coming back home, they will be listening to a lot of noises. So these kind of loud noises can give a lot of impact during their critical developmental phases. Kids and infants are running through their developmental phases, and the loud noise is one of the very critical thing which is causing them adversely. Coming to pregnant women and fetal risk, I've been doing a special study on newborn, the impact of voice pollution among newborn for a few postnatal care setup. So we see that even less than 35 decibel can be harmful for these small little angels. So, but they are even in NICUs. Most of the NICU average acoustic level is 50, 55 when it is not controlled. So pregnant women, of course, they are highly vulnerable, because maternity stress pathway can cause stress-related metabolic damages to them, like hypertension can be one of the things, because they are very highly vulnerable. Gestational hypertension, gestational diabetes, and all. In turn, it can cause fetal growth as well. Maternal cortisol crosses the placental barrier and cause affect low birth weight, premature birth, and neurodevelopmental delays. There are few studies which address these issues in particular, and it has seen a very specific impact on birth weight and premature birth. Noise-induced maternal hypertension, another thing, and noise pollute, also induced maternal hypertension can compromise fetal oxygen supply and nutritional supply. So we need to particularly give attention in addressing these issues while you are, while you look into a pregnant woman and fetal child in particular. Elderly and those who are having chronic disease is another vulnerable group we need to give special attention. Hearing loss progression can be accelerated when they are exposed to, because there is a progression, of course, natural progression of hearing loss in elderly. That is happening. But while they are exposed, this progression can be accelerated. It can be, pushed further forward, as an external contributing factor. Pre-existing sensory impairment is already there, of course, and they are particularly vulnerable to cardiovascular diseases. So that is why, even you do any sharp, whenever you're using something in your household, something like a driller, and power driller, jackhammer, or if you are using something like vacuum cleaner, and somebody who is having this vulnerable heart, somebody is having a history of heart attack, somebody who is frail and very old, you need to give special attention. You need to alert them. You need to tell them that we are going to do this machine now. Be careful. That is something, some precaution we need to take. That is industry standard. In any household, service delivery personnel will be specially, given instruction on this particular level. Any particular instrument you are using in a customer place, you need to see whether there is an infant or an older population having history of heart diseases. So that is the importance of elderly people, and especially when it comes to noise exposure. Cognitive decline, dementia is another very particular thing for elderly people. Elderly care environment must prioritize. We have a lot of elderly care environment. And now it is increasing. Old age homes and long-term care facilities. Even hospitals do have special departments and blocks for elderly care. So we need to give special environmental modification, special precautions in prioritizing noise reduction in this area. And again, in the NICUs or pediatric wards, we need to give special precautions in addressing, making it a friendly environment for the special people. What can be the social and behavioral consequences, like aggression and accidents, performance decline, diminished community well-being and quality of life, and noise density and correlation between noise density and mental fatigue. So social and behavioral consequences is something which is highly forsaken, but which is one of the most direct impact of increased noise level in this community. In the community, noise can be playing in various ways. There can be cultural and religious elements in that. There can be regional elements in that. There can be financial elements in that. So we need to address and understand these. So aggression accidents is one of the very important thing. Aggression is caused by chronic noise exposure. It is very direct. Even in many rats experiments, chronic noise experiment have shown increased aggression level among rats, and many human experiments, of course, it is reiterated in the experiments. So of course, there is a direct impact on cortisol and adrenaline. That can cause, of course, directly, that can cause your affective and mood-related thing, can cause irritability and aggression. Irritability aggression in turn can cause accidents. High noises impairs your hearing critical warning. High noises, a lot of studies happen across the railroad accidents. And in railroad accidents, often we can see the impact of high noises impair their critical warning signs. They misjudge the distances, they fall into accidents. And there is a legal case recently in US about a toddler, about a teenager who died in the rail accidents. Okay, so industrial settings are there. There is a leading cause of increased risk of accidents in traffics, construction sites, noise. You know what happens? Noise masks all the signals and dangers. Okay, noise can mask the actual danger. You don't feel like, the danger is coming. So you can slip, fall, collision, all that can happen due to higher audibility environment. So workplace performance decline is another impact, which is as a topic of discussion, a topic of concern in corporate world. So noise can degrade cognitive performance, that can cause critical thinking, that can impair your problem solving skills, increase distraction, again fatigue. Fatigue is not often due to physical, task. Fatigue can happen even from the emotional and direct physical impact of noise it's by itself. So fatigue, distraction can create a lot of, performance errors, tasks requiring sustained concentration. There are a lot of jobs which you need a very particular sustained concentration, which will impair your memory and communication and can suffer a loud environmental impact and lower productivity issues. So workplace performance decline is another thing which can cause, and workplace often has an innate intrinsic noise scenario. Many workplace, many factories have a default noise, increased elevated noise environment that can cause, direct performance impact among the workers. So diminished community well-being is another thing. Social cohesion. Okay, this when we talk about the definition of noise pollution, we saw something called unwanted. Now, unwanted can be personal, and unwanted can be religious, unwanted can be subjective, person to person can vary. So it can cause neighborhood relationship, it can cause disruption in the social fabric, that can cause resentment, social withdrawal, community engagement problems, and a lot of civic dispute and litigations and allegations. So mental health, when you are especially living in flat system, when we are living in cities like Dubai, any small little sound which is happening in the next door or from the flat above, they will be rattling, they will be pushing their furniture, they will be throwing their, they will be stamping their food. Every little silly things can cause a lot of annoyance in the flat below, in the apartment below. So this is a very common thing which can happen in the cityscape. So mental health burden is another thing. Reduced recreational environment. You are fond of evening walk. You want to go to nearby, you know, what you call that, park, okay, recreational centers. But loud noise and annoyances, you don't want to go there. Even many malls and supermarkets and malls are highly acoustically uh, burdened. Many people don't go there due to this air noise related turbulences and all. So this is something which is very much affecting social fabric. Correlation between noise density and mental fatigue. Urban noise density in cities is very high, and that can cause direct, complex, unpredicted noise patterns. Prolonged exposure to this can cause cognitive overload, cognitive stress, reduced brain's capacity, filter irrelevant stimuli that can cause reducing the resilience of other urban pressures like pollution and overcrowding. So how we can manage it? I think we have very few minutes only, I think. So why it is matter
Have
and how
4
we
minutes,
can,
doctor.
4 minutes only?
4.
4 minutes. Let me just briefly uh, look into this management tools. How you can understand how loud we are living in. So for that, we need to have an activity. You try to understand your day loudness exposure. You can use some tools. There are apps available like Decibel X is one of the Apple. Another one is dB sound level meter. These are the common apps in Apple, and of course you will be having different apps in other phones. So you will get a report like 40.13 is a particular decibel I go. This is online, not an app. So when I measure that in the online tool, I got it like 14.1 dB in my household environment. So this is some device. This is something you can use as a device. So you use those devices, try to understand common noise exposure that you are exposed in your day-to-day life. Okay, then you create the table like this: home, TV, AC, neighborhood noises and all. 40 decibel. If it is below 40, there is no problem. It is not above the safe limit. It is not above the safe limit. When you commute, traffic and all, if it is below 80, or if it is above 80, of course, it is above the safe limit. In your workplace, okay, if it is above, if it is below 65 decibel, you are safe. If it is above that, you are not safe. Gym and all, you will be having a lot of equipments in gym, for example, music and all. If it is 70 decibel, sometimes it can be dangerous. So these are the ways you can use mobile apps, you can use online tools to understand the loudness of your various sound which is coming across around you. Then try to understand your impact, how much impact it is causing on your own health, and you can educate your patients about these kind of tools to understand how devastating this overexposure to noisy environment is. So that is something which I want to give you as a concluding note. Thank you so much.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. We usually don't even think about the pollution caused by noise.
Noises.
We are
Yes.
thinking about the other pollution and talking more about that. Thank you so much for sharing this information with us. I will see again with the same subject or other subjects. Thank you so much on behalf of IFPH. Now it is the time for the Malayalam session. Thank you all the participants for joining with us. I'm inviting Dr. Manoj for moderating the Malayalam session. You're welcome. Bye bye. Bye bye. Good night.